Catherine Susan Genovese, better known as Kitty Genovese, was a New Yorker whose name became a part of history and social psychology textbooks because she was beaten to death by an assailant in the presence of several witnesses, none of whom deemed it necessary to intervene. This phenomenon became known as the bystander effect, Genovese syndrome. Kitty was born in New York City and lived in Brooklyn. After her mother witnessed a murder, the family, deeply affected by the event, moved to Connecticut, with the exception of Kitty, who remained in the city and worked as a bar manager on Jamaica Avenue in the Queens neighborhood. Kitty was a lesbian and lived with her girlfriend. On the evening of March 13, 1964, Kitty arrived home and parked her car. At that moment, a black man, Winston Mosley, approached her, caught up with her, and stabbed her twice in the back. Kitty screamed, and her cries were heard by several neighbors. When one of them shouted from a window, "Leave that girl alone," Mosley ran away, and Kitty slowly walked towards her home. By that time, she was already seriously wounded. The initial witness calls to the police did not contain clear information about what was happening, which is why the call was not given high priority. In particular, the father of one of the witnesses called the police and reported that a woman had been beaten up, but she got up and was staggering around. According to other witnesses, Mosley drove away in his car but soon returned. He was busy combing the area in search of Genovese until he found her lying, but still conscious, in a hallway at the rear of the building. Since this spot was hidden from outside witnesses, he decided to finish the crime and stabbed her several more times. Judging by the knife cuts on her hands, she tried to defend herself. After that, he raped her, stole $49, and left her lying there. Overall, the crime lasted about half an hour. A few minutes after the final attack, a witness named Carl Ross called the police. Kitty Genovese died on the way to the hospital. Later, the police established that at least a dozen, but not 38, as reported in a sensationalist New York Times article, witnesses saw certain episodes of the attack, although they did not realize the seriousness of the events unfolding before their eyes. Only one witness, Joseph Fink, saw the stabbing during the first attack, and a second, Carl Ross, knew about them after the second attack. Most other witnesses were sure the screams were just a common quarrel between acquaintances or the shouts of drunk people. Winston Mosley, captured soon after the murder, confessed not only to this crime, but also to 2 other murders involving sexual assault. A psychiatric examination determined that Mosley was a necrophiliac. According to his confession, that night he intended to kill a woman, any woman. So, leaving his wife asleep, he left home and began searching for a victim. He described the attack in such detail that the judges had no doubt about his guilt, and he was sentenced to death. On June 1, 1967, the New York Court of Appeals reviewed the sentence and commuted it to 20 years in prison. In 1968, Mosley deliberately ate spoiled soup to create a pretext for a trip to the hospital. During the transfer to a hospital in Buffalo, New York, Mosley assaulted a guard and then took 5 female hostages, one of whom he raped. It took 2 days for the police to capture Mosley and free the hostages. Later, Mosley participated in the Attica prison riots. In November 2011, Mosley's petition for parole was denied for the 15th time. In his previous petition for release, he argued in his favor, stating that, for the victim, what happened is a one-time incident, a matter of a minute or half an hour, while for the caught criminal, it is forever. Winston Mosley died on March 28, 2016, in the Dannemora State Prison in New York after 52 years of imprisonment. Kitty was buried in New Canaan, Connecticut in the family burial plot. At the family's request, the grave's location is kept secret. The story of Kitty Genovese's murder became the subject of numerous books and publications in the USA and other countries. It even entered social psychology textbooks. At the same time, an aura of unhealthy sensationalism remains around the story. For instance, the figure of 38 witnesses, which first appeared in a Times publication but was not confirmed in court, is repeated from one publication to another. Moreover, the Genovese syndrome, also known as the bystander effect, is presented as an example of mass indifference, while the authors of the term ignore the fact that the vast majority of witnesses did not see the events but only heard distant screams, from which they could not guess the seriousness of the situation. The public outcry caused by Kitty's death led to a reform of the system for receiving telephone reports about crimes. Despite this, 10 years later, a similar story occurred almost in the same place. 25-year-old Sandra Zahler was beaten to death, and her screams were heard by many,
yet no one reacted. As a result of the murder, the first neighborhood watch was also created. Residents of the Queens neighborhood united into volunteer squads that patrolled the streets in the evenings, paying attention to any suspicious person and reporting them to the police.